You think you know someone. You think you have a handle on every situation, every relationship. But what if one day someone you trust sees you in a completely different light? What if everything you've worked for, everything you've kept secret, was suddenly laid bare in the most unexpected way? That's exactly what happened to me. It all started when I decided to wear something a little daring. Something I hadn't worn in years. Something that would change everything. There was this feeling I couldn't shake. It was like the world was offering me a chance to break free, to be someone else for a while. My husband, Chris, had gone away on a business trip for the weekend, and I was alone in the house. The kids, well, they were at school. It was a perfect opportunity for a little me time. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at myself. The skirt was tight, a mini skirt, something that accentuated every curve. It was a risk, but I felt alive. For the first time in what felt like ages, I could do something just for me. But as I stepped into the kitchen to grab a quick snack, I had no idea that everything was about to change. What happened next? It felt like everything froze. His eyes, locked on me. And in that moment, I realized something was different. I didn't even hear him come in. 1 minute, I was rummaging through the fridge, and the next, I heard the door creak open. I turned to see Evan, my nephew, standing in the doorway. Evan's almost 18 now, and I hadn't seen him in a while, especially since he'd been busy with school and his own life. But there he was. He froze. His eyes widened, and I could feel my pulse quicken as he stared at me. It wasn't just a glance, no, this was different. He was staring. Really staring. It was like his eyes were seeing me for the first time. I tried to laugh it off, trying to brush it aside like it was nothing. "Hey, Evan, what's up?" I asked, trying to act normal. But I knew he wasn't listening. His eyes were still on me, fixed on the skirt that I had thought would just be a small act of rebellion. But this felt bigger. Much bigger. What was going on in his mind? What was he thinking as he stood there, motionless? I had no idea then, but I was about to find out. Evan didn't speak. He just kept looking at me, his mouth opening, then closing like he didn't know how to react. There was something in his gaze. Something hungry. Something almost predatory. The silence stretched on. And in that silence, I could feel every nerve in my body buzzing, alive with tension. My mind raced, trying to figure out if I had imagined this. "Evan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What's going on? Is something wrong?" He blinked rapidly, as if snapping out of a trance. His gaze shifted away from me, then back again. Nothing," he said, his voice tight. Just surprised to see you like that, I guess." He turned on his heel, practically running out of the room without another word. I stood there completely frozen, unsure of what had just happened. I thought I knew Evan. He was my nephew after all. But in that moment, it felt like I didn't know him at all. What happened next left me speechless. I thought it was over, but I was so wrong. Hours later, after trying to push the whole thing out of my mind, I went upstairs to relax. It had been a weird day, to say the least. The uneasy feeling stayed with me, lingering like a dark cloud overhead. I was just about to slip into bed when I heard a knock at my door. I froze. "Come in," I called out, expecting to see Chris or even one of the kids. But when the door opened, I saw Evan. My heart skipped a beat. He was standing there, looking different. There was something in his eyes, something that made my stomach flip. "I need to talk to you, Aunt Laura," he said, his voice almost hesitant. I immediately felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. What was going on? Why did he seem so nervous? His words shattered everything. They left me questioning myself, questioning him. But there was no going back now. "I've been thinking," Evan began, his gaze never leaving mine. "About earlier, I mean. About what happened in the kitchen." I opened my mouth to speak, to brush it off, but he cut me off. "I can't stop thinking about it," he admitted, his voice almost a whisper. You looked beautiful. I don't know why, but I couldn't stop staring. A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to laugh it off. I wanted to say he was just a kid and didn't know what he was saying. But the way he looked at me, the intensity in his eyes, it wasn't the look of a nephew, it was the look of a man. The silence between us was deafening. What could I say to that? What should I say to that? I don't know what's happening, Evan continued. I just know that I've never seen you the way I see you now. You're not just my aunt anymore. You're different. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was caught in some kind of web I couldn't escape. I knew I should say something. I knew I should shut this down, tell him it was wrong, that we couldn't go there. But somehow, my body wouldn't listen. I just stared back at him, not sure what was real anymore, not sure what was right or wrong. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop this. Evan took a step closer, his eyes never leaving mine. The air between us was thick with tension, and I could feel the heat rising, a feeling I had not experienced in years. I wasn't sure what to do. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop this, if I wanted to push him away, or if I wanted to lean in. He reached for me, his hand brushing lightly against my arm. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. What was I doing? What was he doing? But we were standing there, closer than we had ever been before, the lines between family and desire blurring with every passing second. It was the moment I was dreading, the moment I had no control over. Evan's hand moved to my waist. The touch was tentative at first, like he wasn't sure if he had the right to be this close. But then, as if sensing my hesitation, he pulled me toward him. I should have stopped him. I should have said something. Anything. But in that moment, I couldn't. I was paralyzed by the weight of the situation, by the pull between what was right and what was wrong. I knew I couldn't go back. There was no going back from this. What happened next? It was the most dangerous thing I've ever done, and I will never, ever forget it. The next morning, everything was different. The tension between Evan and me was palpable. We didn't speak much. We barely looked at each other. But the memory of the night before lingered in the air like smoke, something that couldn't be erased. I thought we could pretend it never happened, that we could move on, like it was just a weird moment. But I was wrong. I could feel the distance growing between us, the unspoken words that lingered in the silence. Something had changed, something irreversible.